This, I actually go back into the editor, and I have a certain number of points that I can spin on my creature to improve it. So in this case, I might decide I want it to be a little faster, so I'll put some better feet on it. Let's see, down here. And maybe give it another set of arms, because that might be useful. There we go. And then I can repaint it as well. So basically, I will play through maybe 10, 20 generations of evolution for my creature, eventually bring it to intelligence. And I can choose to make, a very peaceful herbivore and maybe go for a more social, herd-like existence. Now, as I'm actually born as a baby. So I'm actually this little baby here. And I can socialize with my siblings here. And as we socialize more and more, we kind of start bonding together and act more as a herd, and they'll start mimicking what I do. So now, as I move around after socializing with these guys for a little bit, now they'll start following me around, and we can go kind of bother our neighbors over here, the herbivores. Oh, this is the carnivore that tried to eat us. Yeah, so we can go kind of tease our friends here. But now we have to run away, or else they're going to eat us again. We got one of us. But now, from this point of the game, eventually you'll achieve intelligence. Now you're controlling a whole group. Tribal dynamics, basically investing in their tools, what kind of path you want them to take. They can be hunters, gatherers. They start interacting with other tribes, and then we start dealing with relationships and the sociology of that. Eventually, they start, the player can create their own huts, tools, etc. Eventually, plants. As we get to the city phase, they're actually creating not just the city, but the individual buildings as well. We have editors for each of these things. Once you've learned kind of one editor, you kind of know how they all work. Eventually, they're creating vehicles at the civilization phase. I'm going to skip ahead here really quick, just to show you what it looks like later in the game. So this is actually the same planet we were on before, much later in their evolution. They're now an intelligent society, just to give you a sense of what it looks like later. And again, the entire world here, was designed by the player, and will then be kind of visitable by other players. So this is a city that was built. All these buildings were built in the editor. These are the same guys evolved to intelligence. We can actually kind of pull back a little bit. This is another city, a much more modern city. At this point of the game, they're actually ready to enter the very last phase, which is the space game. So I can actually have them enter the space age here, pick a UFO for them. And now they're going to actually launch their first spaceship, which brings you to the last part of the game. Now, up to this point, the player has been working on one world, and the player owns that world, really. They own the evolution of that species, the evolution of the towns, the design of the civilization. At the civilization phase, you can kind of choose your civilization to become more militaristic or economically oriented or culturally oriented. So here's our UFO. I'm having a little celebration launching it. Now I'm actually flying this thing around, and in some sense this is like a Swiss Army knife. It's just a collection of tools that you can upgrade to higher and higher levels in the game. So we can kind of look at the whole world that we've been playing on up to this point. Now, one of the things we might want to do at this point is start collecting samples that we can bring to actually bootstrap other worlds, because we're actually simulating a whole ecosystem here on this planet. So I can go into my cargo bay, open the abduction beam, and start abducting creatures into my UFO here. And now they're basically in my cargo hold that I can use for seeding other systems. We've also found you can throw things with this really nicely. So we've managed to get things into orbit with them. But for the first time, we can actually pull back and see the entire planet that we've been playing on up to this point. So the entire game has been played on the surface of this planet here. And, again, we're building this on top of very highly leveraged, very generative systems. So this entire planet, with all of its species, buildings, and everything, compresses down to about 80K of data, which means that it's amazingly portable because, like life, we are relying on extremely simple but powerful routines to kind of generate all the detail you see here. One of the creatures on this world, one species compresses down to about 3K. So we can basically take these things and make them very portable. Now we can pull back from this planet out to our solar system, and here we see other planets around us here. We can fly over to these worlds. Some of them have primitive life. Some are lifeless, where we actually will go in and kind of play a terraforming game and establish the right kind of temperature, get water on the planet, etc. Now here's a planet that has primitive life but no intelligence. And you can see this is a somewhat more imaginative world. Now with the UFO we also have terraforming tools. So in fact the players can sculpt their own entire planets, very much like a ball of clay with very imaginative tools. How many of you have ever seen an old program called KidPix? And it was a really cool paint program for kids, and that was kind of our model for what the Planetary Editor was. Is we wanted these really cool creative tools that felt like kind of out of control, but really fun.